Brian, could you lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance, please?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, this is the Planning and Zoning Board / local planning agency. It's an advisory board which makes recommendations to the county commissioners who will make the final decision on these items. Items H1, H2, and H9 are LPA items. Items on today's agenda will be heard by the county commission on December 12th at 5 p.m. When a motion ends in any kind of a split vote, a roll call vote may be taken to ensure accuracy. As a reminder, each member who makes a motion or a second needs to turn their microphone on so that the voice is on the record. Speakers for public comment. On these agenda items, I will give you 2 minutes to speak. Once the beeper goes off, please be respectful, because obviously we have a lot of people who want to speak. At this time, if any board member has had any ex parte communication regarding any application, please disclose so now. All right, seeing that, I need a motion for approval of the P&Z minutes from September 16th, 2024.
I'll make a motion.
Second.
Got a motion by Henry, a second by Robert. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, that passed unanimously. I'm going to move items H1 and H2 down right below 8, H8. So that'll put us, number 1 will be going before H9. All right, so we're going to skip the item H3. Did you follow me on that?
Yes, sir. So just so the audience understands is that items H1 and H2 are going to be moved in front of H9.
Correct.
So
No,
just
below
for
H9.
before H9. You want it after H9. Okay. We can do that. Just for the Mr. Chair, for clarification, these items before you today are going to be heard at the November 7th Board of County Commissioners meeting, not in December. The other item that I wanted to bring to your attention in the audience, if you are here to speak for items H1 or the previous H1 and H2, there's a sign-up sheet in the back of the room that gets sent up to the Florida Commerce. Again, if you're speaking on one of those items, please sign in so we have a record of your contact information. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
All right, item H3, please.
Good afternoon. Item H3, Michael and Bonita Osborne request to change the zoning classification from RU-1-9 to TR-3 under application number 24Z00038, tax account number 2409628, located in District 1.
Okay, is the applicant here? Okay, sir, if you could come up here to the podium up front, and if you could state your name and address for the record, and just a little bit about what you're wanting to do.
Yes, sir. Michael Osborne. Address is 12202 Rambling Oak, Orlando, Florida, 32832.
All right, and a little bit about what you're wanting to do.
My wife and I have desires, future planning to bring something into the community, rather it be a mobile home park.
There, you can push that mic up, and that way we can hear you there. Okay.
Yes, sir. And so, as I was saying, my wife, we grew up in the community. That is our home, and then we purchased the land with the desires to put either a mobile home park on some kind of affordable housing, rather it be trailers, rather it be condos. But we just want to get back to the community where we both grew up and played as kids.
All right. If you could stay right there. Is there anybody in the audience want to speak for or against item H3? That's really good news. Seeing that, I'm going to bring it back to the board. Do we have any questions for the applicant?
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, sir.
I have a question. That is going to require a 50-foot setback. You're aware of that?
Yes, we are, sir.
Okay. My question is, would you be willing to have that 50-foot be a vegetative buffer that includes some existing trees?
Yes, we would, sir.
Okay. Staff, does that need to be put into a BDP? Or how do we,
So tell me again, you want to have a 50-foot buffer on what side of the property?
I forgot to look. I know that there was a 50-foot setback required, and I was just requesting that that be a vegetative buffer and save as many of the existing trees as possible.
You got a ditch on the west, don't you? Near the interstate?
Yes, it is, sir.
So, Mr. Chair, as far as I understand, so you're asking for a 50-foot vegetative buffer along the east side of the property?
Yes, on the east side.
So that should be contemplated in a BDP.
Okay. So, sir, you would need to have a BDP that says you're going to have a binding development plan that says you're going to have a 50-foot vegetative buffer and preserving as many of the trees as possible.
And sir, is that buffer just limited to one side? Can we bring it all around the property?
Yeah, on the east side. That's where all the existing residences are.
Okay, so is it just that side, or can we bring the buffer all the way around with the vegetation?
From my point of view, on the west side, it's water. So,
It's water.
so I don't think there's anybody going to be on that water that's going to object to and you may want to have it. You need doesn't he need a 50-foot setback all the way around?
It shouldn't be.
No, Mr.
Yeah,
Ron, you're
so,
on.
I'm sorry. The perimeter setbacks for the mobile homes is 50 feet from all property lines, unless it's contiguous to some other zonings, but it is 50 feet from all property lines.
Okay. Yeah, what I just wanted to have was be sure to have it be a vegetative buffer, not just empty space.
So, Mr. Chair, my staff will get with the applicant and explain on the BDP process, if that's part of your motion.
Okay. Therefore, I move that we recommend approval with the BDP.
Okay, we got a motion by Ron. This is item H3, a second by Robert. All those in favor say aye. Discussion, I already called for discussion.
I know, but they haven't had a chance because he motioned after he made his comments.
And he,
No, you don't have to do that. He can discuss
you
it
don't
before we
need to
vote.
withdraw it. We were done, but now we're not. Go ahead, John.
No, I was just wondering how you were going to get access to the site. Where are all the residents for a trailer park or whatever you're putting in there going to get access?
And sir, if I could ask my wife if she can come up, because she's done a lot of the planning. She's a better speaker than I am.
Well, there's two ways to access.
Hold on.
There's two ways to access. One already exists on Robeson, and the other, they can access from Parish Road.
It's on Parish.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, I know. Yeah. I should have told you.
I was asking them.
Well,
Mr. Chair?
fairly know.
Yeah, I need to clarify. There is no access currently right now through Parish. There's the county owns some property, what we call a spike strip. So I just want the applicants to understand the only access to the property is to the south.
Yes, sir. And we've spoken with the county a couple of years ago, and I have which I don't think this will suffice right now, but I have a document from Mr. Michael, who's the engineer that works for the county, and he says that we can access it from, there's about 100 yards where Lakeview Boulevard there's like a circle, a half circle that leads on to Parish. He said we can access it without them from that 100-yard spike. But if we were to go on that corner of Lakeview and Parish Road, we're going to need to get permission from them. Now, I've also been told that we need to get permission from them regardless if we want to access from Parish, period.
Yeah, because of what he just said. So without that permission, you'd have to have everyone come through Robertson, correct?
Yes, and I'm comfortable with that.
But are the neighbors?
Yes, I would think so. The ones I've talked to, they just want something nice there.
Okay.
Jeff, isn't Brophy in Catalina Village? The road Brophy, they call it Brophy?
Yes, sir, it is.
The road to the south.
They can
believe
use
is-
that,
is
can't they?
Is county maintained.
There's no reason they can't use that.
Correct. That would,
Okay.
the access to the property will be addressed in the site plan or the subdivision process.
Brophy is Robertson. Yeah. Okay, I asked my question.
With regard to the access, Short Drive also fronts the property on the east side. So it's Robeson and Short actually have access there.
Yeah, but then they're having to go through the neighborhood to get access.
I understand that,
Okay.
but as
I
far
just wanted
as
to bring that up
the legal
because
roads there are.
I don't know how much traffic this is going to generate because we don't know how many units they're putting in there. And he had said earlier in his discussion that they were going to do either mobile homes or they were going to do condominiums. There's a big difference. And so I didn't know what the occupancy would be. And that's why I was asking the question.
All right, but my understanding was the question was there, how could they have access? And Robeson and Short both have frontage on the property. So either one of them could be used as access or both. I just want to clarify that for the record, that's all.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, item H3, we had a motion by Ron, a second by Robert. All those in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed? That passed unanimously. All right, thank you.
Thank you all.
Have a good day, sir. Okay, item H4.
Item H4, Julia Bertot requests a change of zoning classification from RU-1-9 to RU-1-7 under application number 24Z00039, tax count number 2300349, located in District 1.
And he's sending you up here by yourself, huh?
Yeah.
Okay, ma'am, if you could state your name and address for the record and a little bit about what you're wanting to do here.
All right, my name's Julia Bertot, and I live at 4123 Chuliota Road in Orlando, Florida, 32820. We own a 50-foot lot on the Indian River, and currently with the zoning, we can't build a single-family home on it, so we'd like to have it rezoned so we can build a home and enjoy the river. That's pretty much it.
All right, well, while you're right there, is there anyone in the audience want to speak for or against this item, H4?
I'll speak for it.
All right. If y'all could just take a seat right there real quick. We got two people back here who want to speak. And whoever's not talking, sir, or whatever, you could take a seat. Oh, no, well, you could wait there, too. Ma'am, if you could state your name and address for the record.
Cynthia Ann Bedrogi,
Okay.
and I live next door to the property in question, the empty lot. I've lived there for over 20 years. My father lives adjacent to me, who is 96, and my brother, Senior David, he lives next door to my dad on the other side. Combined, we have about 5 acres on the river. And my father's lived there over 40 years, and same with my brother.
Okay.
And we are opposed adamantly to the rezoning to lower the amount of square footage and also the property setbacks that would be reduced, because anything they built or put in there is going to devalue my home because it's going to be less than what anybody has on the street there. And several, I can't speak for anybody else but myself, they have not maintained that property over the last 20 years. It has affected me greatly financially because of the washout to my seawall. Ms. Bertot has not done anything to try to preserve from washouts. Right now we have where the water is encroaching onto my property from their property because they haven't maintained it. So now she wants to reduce the zoning requirements, and what are we going to end up with then?
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
All right, sir, you want to speak?
My wife speaks fantastic.
Or-
I'm just supporting her in every way. There's a lot of financial and other reasons.
So we're opposed, correct?
We're opposed completely.
All right, thank you. Anyone else want to speak for or against this item? Okay,
I apologize.
all right.
I'm sorry.
We're setting a bad precedent here for the rest of these people.
I understand that. I apologize. Michael Bedrogi. My address is 6845 River Edge Drive. I am directly next door to the property in question.
Okay,
Some of the things that are of concern is that there's other concerns. That property is kind of in our street. We have direct access to waterfront. There's natural waterways when storms come that are formed on our street. One of them being there. Down the road, Dr. Catani, I don't have the exact numbers, probably spent $150,000 on water work for him to be able to divert the water underneath where he could build his large mansion down there. If this isn't taken into account on the geological survey end of things, stilts in a 30, I don't know what they're going to be putting there, but there's a lot of considerations with this property that need to go into effect. And the last storm has reduced the area of that lot by probably another 12 feet into it just from this last storm. And I've got evidence of so much damage over the years. So there was other considerations, and that's what I want to bring up.
okay.
Thank you.
All right, thank you, sir. Ma'am, if y'all could come back up to the podium. And hearing that, I bring it, excuse me, I bring it back to the board. Do we have any questions for the applicant?
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, sir.
I had a question for staff. Without this rezoning, what could they put on that property?
Without the rezoning, they wouldn't be able to develop the property. The rezoning is what helps to alleviate the issues because it doesn't meet the zoning classification that it has currently.
Okay. Does the county have any liability or exposure, legal exposure, if we do not pass this zoning?
Mr. Barcher, I don't believe that's the case here. We would have to look back historically at how the property was divided and how it came into being. I don't believe we've done that research at this time, but whether or not someone can sue, that's always the case, but whether or not they'd win, that's another issue.
Okay, I was just really concerned about that, about our not allowing them to do any building, and then essentially we've taken away their property rights.
Can I talk?
So Mr. Barcher and the rest of the board, what I would tell you is that when we analyze a rezoning like this, we are looking at, or I should say analyzing consistency and compatibility. Consistency with the comp plan and compatibility with the surrounding area. And based on our staff comments, this request meets both that criteria.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman.
Yes, sir. Mr. John.
Yes. The RU17, what's the setback requirements?
20 in the front, 20 in the rear, and 5, I think, is it 7.5? It's either 5 or 7.5 on the side. The RU19, it's 7.5, and the RU17, it's 5 for side setbacks, but they both have 20 in the front and 20 in the rear.
Okay, so this being a 50-foot lot, it'd be a mighty skinny house. Like a railroad car, maybe. Did you anticipate that it would be a very narrow house?
I found home plans that were, you know,
Narrow,
narrow, yeah,
okay.
and attractive.
And there would definitely be 20 feet in the back and 20 foot in
Oh,
front.
yeah.
Yeah,
no
yeah, no,
problem.
you
Yeah,
get
no
steep
problem.
enough to
Yeah.
do that. I didn't
Yeah.
see a problem with that.
And-
w-
And can I say something about the,
20 feet to the sides.
Would you
What's
stop
that?
interrupting me?
No.
Mr. Chairman, I have the floor.
and as far as, can I say about?
Hang on one second,
okay.
let me finish here. You going to put a garage in there?
Probably not.
Probably not, probably.
We were thinking about putting the house on stilts if, well, we have to look into all the environmental issues, but we thought it'd probably be better on stilts, so we'd be
So
able to
you'd park the cars under
underneath
the,
it.
under the building?
Uh-huh, if possible. I mean, it's all what the, you know, environmental issues are.
No, the stilt idea is a
Yeah.
good one, because,
Yeah.
you know, I'm surprised there aren't other homes around that have stilts.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They should. Okay. Go ahead and make your statement.
No, what I was going to say is about the washout. The plan would be to develop the riverfront, you know, with rocks or whatever to fill it in, so there wouldn't be any washout if we had a house there.
That's all going to be addressed later.
Yeah, yeah,
We're
that's-
here-
that's-
We're
that's-
here just strictly for zoning.
Got it. My bad.
All right, thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Chair, I just want to clarify, the side setback for RU19 is 7.5 feet.
7.5. On each side. Side setbacks.
Side setback is 7.5.
Okay. So it's taking 15 feet away from your 50. So you have
So
a 35
foot.
35-foot house. Okay. Be better to make a bowling alley out of it.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, sir.
I believe that it does meet the requirements that we need, and so I'm going to move that we recommend approval of this zoning change.
Okay. Okay, we got a motion by Ron on item H4, a second by Brian. All those in favor say aye. Any opposed? That passed unanimously.
Thank you, sir.
All right, item H5.
So Vida Land LLC requests to change the zoning classification from RU-1-9 to RU-1-11 under application number 24Z00046, tax account number 3017131, located in District 5.
Okay, and the applicant, if y'all could please come up and state your name and address for the record.
Brian Cates, 419 Avenue B, Melbourne Beach, Florida, 32951.
And a little bit about what you're wanting to do, Mr. Bryant.
We are looking to change the zoning from RU19 to RU111 in order to build a single-family house. The RU19 is not compatible with the future zoning, but RU111 is, and I think that'll exceed the RU19 setbacks and square footage required.
All right, and sir, while you're right there, is there anyone in the audience want to speak for or against this item, H5? That's good news, Mr. Bryan. We're going pretty quick here. All right, seeing that, I bring it back to the board. We got any questions for Mr. Bryan?
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, sir.
I had a question for staff. When was the land use set to Res 4? And why did we create a large neighborhood whose zoning is inconsistent with the land use?
Mr. Berkshire, that's a very good question. However,
I can answer that, Jeff. Because this guy, he goes way back.
I'm not taking this one.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
For whatever reason, back in 1988, when they established the Res 4, they didn't take into consideration the existing zoning that was in place. Unfortunately, 1255 does not allow for Res 4 and the existing zoning to be consistent, and that's the whole reason to why we're entertaining this request, is to allow for a consistent zoning classification in compliance with the Res 4 land use category or designation.
Okay. I also had a question. Why wasn't it set to Res 6 instead of Res 4? Wouldn't that be more appropriate?
Considering that this area is all Res 4, it's more appropriate to change the zoning to match that. You could change the land use part of it, but that's, staff felt it was more appropriate to change the zoning to match.
I'm sorry, I didn't, what I meant was, when the original zoning was put in, or land use was put in, why was it Res 4 rather than Res 6? Okay, never mind.
We're cleaning it up.
One lot at a time.
Right.
All right, Mr. Chairman, I move that we recommend approval of the zoning change.
Okay, you got a motion by Ron on item H5, a second by Robert. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That passed unanimously. Thank you. Okay, item H6.
Mannarino Family Revocable Living Trust requests a change of zoning classification from RU-1-7 and RR-1 to all RR-1 under application 24Z00041, tax account number 2802503, located in District 5.
Okay, sir, if you could state your name and address for the record.
Mark Mannarino, 2645 Corey Avenue, Melbourne 32904.
And a little bit about what you're wanting to do, Mr. Mannarino.
Yeah, actually, the Planning and Zoning Department indicated that I need to combine these two different zonings on the property I have. We've lived in our house since '81. It's the original property we had was about 1.09 acres, and it was zoned RR1. About 15 years ago, we bought a little outlot that was a quarter acre adjacent to the property, and that was zoned RU-17 at the time. And according to the Planning and Zoning Department, moving forward, one's residential property has to be all the same zone, otherwise I can't get any permits. So that's, I just want them combined into RR1.
Okay, and while you're right there, is there anyone in the audience want to speak for or against this item? Sir, if you could step aside there.
Hi, my name's Kimberly Odell. I'm 2680 State Street, Melbourne. I'm within 500 feet of the property. My concern is that this was a little bit vague, and I wanted some clarification from him and from you guys. According to what I looked up, our concern as neighbors was the RR1 changed it to a little bit more vague. Family homes, parks, public recreational facilities, private golf courses, foster homes, sewer lift station, bed and breakfast inns, and the list goes on. So what I wanted is a little more clarification from him if he's changing it to RR1 because it takes away the RU-1-7, which is residential. Is he planning to put something like that on the future? And if that's the case, if it's changed today to RR1, would that be grandfathered in to whatever he wanted to put on that piece of property? That's my questions.
All right. Thank you, ma'am. Anyone else want to speak for or against this item? All right, seeing that, I'm going to close it to the floor. Sir, come on back.
Yeah, this little quarter acre is in the northwest corner of our property. It's a horse pasture right now. We have fence around it. It's been a horse pasture for 15 years. We have no plans on changing it, building anything on it. It's going to stay just like it is, so our horse can play around on it. The only reason I'm going through this rezoning is so that I can get any kind of a building permit in the future. If I want to add an air conditioner, if I want to put a door on my house, etc., I have to have all my property zoned the same. So I have no plans on making any changes to that quarter-acre piece of property.
All right. Hearing that, I bring it back to the board. We got any questions for the applicant?
Mr. Chairman, I move to approve.
I'll second.
Okay, we got a motion by John, a second by Brian on item H6. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That passed unanimously.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Okay, item H7.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Item H7 is Frank Mastroianni requests to change the zoning classification from BU1 and RU210 to PUD. Application number is 23 PUD 00001. Tax account number is 2600118, located in District 2. This item was continued from the June 10th, 2024 P&Z LPA meeting and the July 11th, 2024 BoCC meeting. So when it was in front of this board, this board recommended denial with the application. At the July 11th, 2024 board meeting, the recommendation was the request was remanded back for staff review in anticipation the applicant is going to revise the request to be reheard at the October 14th, 2024 Planning and Zoning meeting and the November 7th, 2024 BoCC meeting. To date, the applicant has not submitted any revised plans.
Okay, is the applicant here?
Oh, that's interesting.
That makes it easy.
Mr. Chairman, since the applicant's not here and there is no change, any significant change, I see no reason that I would want to change my recommendation for denial. So I'm going to move that we recommend denial.
Okay, we got a motion by Ron, a second by Robert on item H7 for denial. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That was denied. So does that mean all of y'all are leaving now? Thank you.
No, we've got, wait, we've got all this stuff we have to do.
They don't want to hear this crap.
You should, yeah.
Yeah, so just so everyone in attendance, this will be heard at the November 7th BoCC meeting where the board will take action whether they're going to approve the application or deny the application.
Okay, item H8.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Stickrath Developer LLC requests to change the zoning classification from BU-2 to AU under application number 24Z00026, tax account number 2601599, located in District 4. This item was continued from the September 16th, 2024 Planning and Zoning LPA meeting for re-advertisement.
Okay, and sir, you're the applicant?
I'm the contractor for the applicant.
Okay, if you could state your name and address for the record.
Curtis McKinney, 2108 West New Haven Avenue, McKinney Commercial Construction Group.
And a little bit, Mr. McKinney, about what you're wanting to do here.
The owner's turning that property into a goat rescue, trying to save it from the Jamaican restaurants. No, basically, he's just wanting to raise, he's been over there saving rescued goats for some years, I guess, and code enforcement came down there just doing a regular inspection and seen that and said something about it to him. So he's just taking one acre of property out of there and just cut it out as the goat rescue. And he just does it for the community. He's probably spent about $100,000 at this point rescuing goats. I don't necessarily have anything other than that to put towards it. I know that they, they advertise them on the Facebook and places like that if they want to take them and rescue them and put them to a good home. And so it's just sort of kind of one of those things that he does in his spare time.
All right. If you could hold on right there, Mr. McKinney. Does anybody in the audience want to speak for or against this item? Item H8? All right, seeing that, I bring it back to the board.
Mr. Chairman, I had a couple of questions for the applicant. Does this property have a grassy field for the goats?
Yes, sir. And
Okay.
they're fed pretty good. They're fed better than me and you.
All right. And is the area fenced so that they'll be contained?
Yes, sir. And it's got shelter. It's got everything. It's got a birthing station.
Okay. And would the owner be willing to add a BDP to limit the use of the AU zoning to a goat rescue only?
I'm sure he would. I couldn't really just sign up for that right now based on, I don't know, what happens if he gets an alpaca? You know what I'm saying? Or maybe he gets another goat, or I don't know. It's just a little tiny rescue. It's 1 acre. I mean, they've never had no more, I guess, than what the lady told me was 7 or 9 animals there at any one time. I've known about it for about 10 years or 8 years that he's been doing it. He started it in Okeechobee, Florida, and now he's brought it up here from Okeechobee. This is his second location now. So he's tucked in the back behind that Welty Lake. We all know where Welty Lake is, right, Henry? Yeah, we know where that one is. So he's back in the corner. They can't swim. They're not coming out of there. It's just 1 little acre back in the corner. And behind them is, used to be that big junkyard. I don't know what it's called now, that doggone KQ or something like that. So they got a 40-foot hill to climb to get out of there. So I don't want to say he would be, and I don't want to say he wouldn't be. Is that something that you've got a gun to my head right now?
I really would like to have a BDP that restricts that AU, so that, because AU is very
Is
very
AU going to
broad
just
zoning.
limit just to goats only is what I'm asking? Or is it, can it be any like little small farm animals?
So,
Is
Mr.
it-
Chair, if I can make a suggestion, I'm just throwing it out there to have BDP to limit to the raising and grazing of farm animals, if that's part of your appetite.
That sounds good to me. Would that be acceptable?
We're good with that. Goats are good with that.
Okay.
We're all good. Yeah, no problem.
It sounds real good to me.
Mr. Chairman, what's the adjoining property to the south?
Graveyard, everybody's dead.
No.
No comment from that side.
No. Please, sir.
No, which side?
Little respect here. The owner has the property to the south.
Yes, sir, he does. It's Landscape Depot,
Right.
full of
Okay.
rocks.
And you were saying there's grass that they can eat. There's nothing there but a pond on that little section here?
It's a lot more vegetation than what you're seeing there, sir.
Well, that's what I have as documentation
Yeah.
from
And
the staff.
they're fed daily.
No, that's not what I was asking. I just wanted to know, is it only this portion of the site that will be AU? Or is the whole thing going to be AU? Because in the appraisal district.
It's only the box that's highlighted in yellow on that map.
Okay, because in the appraisal district, it's got everything, it's got both sections. And I was a little concerned that this large area over here.
That was part of the re-advertisement, John, is that the application had to be revised to just have that portion. So before you is just that 2.5 acre piece that you're looking at from that map.
Which is mostly water.
It is. 50% water, yes, sir.
Looks more like 70.
Well, we really only needed enough for 6 or 8 goats. We only needed about a half or 3/4 of an acre. They made us go to 2.5 acres. That's why we encompassed the lake into it. Because really, we don't need that much property. We're not, rescuing that many goats.
Okay, it
Or
also
little
looks
farm
like
animals.
that lake drains onto the highway.
That lake illegally drains to my owner's property. It's an issue with the county right now because the county's in the middle of a lawsuit with Mr. Welty. I'm sure you're aware of that too.
No, I'm
Through our
not, but-
property. Yes, it is.
You want to approve this and they're suing you?
They're not suing us.
No.
Mr. Welty's suing y'all.
Yeah, that's what I
It ain't
mean.
got nothing to do with us. He's not on our property.
All right, thank you, Mr. Chairman.
All right. Any other questions for the applicant?
Mr. Chairman, I move that we recommend approval of the zoning change with that BDP.
I second it, or
All right. Got a motion by Ron, a second by Henry. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? That passed unanimously.
Thank you, Mark. Y'all have a good day.
All right. You too, sir. Okay, item H1.
So item H1 is the transmittal of the large-scale comprehensive plan amendment regarding the Brevard Barrier Island BBIA as a new element to the comprehensive plan under the state coordinated review process. On January 1st, 2023, Florida Statute Section 380.0553, the state legislature established the Brevard Barrier Island Area as a critical area state concern. Section 163.3191 Florida statutes requires changes in the state law to be included in any amendments resulting from the evaluation and appraisal review of the comprehensive plan. Brevard County has contracted with a consultant to identify these goals, objectives, and policies that are necessary to implement the statutory guiding principles of the Brevard Barrier Island Area. These draft goals, objectives, and policies will be incorporated and adopted as Element 16 Brevard Barrier Island Area to the Brevard County Comprehensive Plan. As part of the legislation, 380.0553 established guiding principles for development. State, regional, and local agencies and units of the government in the Brevard Barrier Island Area shall coordinate their plans and conduct their programs and regulatory activities to be consistent with the following guideline principles for development within this area. So, guiding principle A is preventing adverse impacts of development on resources critical to the sea turtle habitat by prohibiting new shoreline hardening structures and enforcing existing state and county coastal construction regulations. Prioritizing water quality restoration projects in the Indian River Lagoon, reducing nutrient contributions from septic tanks and wastewater facilities, stormwater discharge, and agricultural non-point sources in the Indian River Lagoon. Supporting innovative nature-based solutions, including living shorelines and freshwater coastal wetland restorations, safeguarding against adverse economic, social, and environmental and public health and safety impacts, posed by flooding, storm surge, and protecting critical assets identified in Section 380.093, protecting shoreline and marine resources, including mangroves, seagrass beds, wetlands, sea turtles, manatees, and fish and wildlife and related habitats, protecting upland resources, including dune ridges, beaches, wildlife, and related habitats, limiting adverse impacts of development on water quality of water throughout Brevard Barrier Island Area and Indian River Lagoon, enhancing natural scenic resources to promote the aesthetic benefits of the natural environment, and assuring the development is compatible with the unique characteristics of Brevard Barrier Island Area. With that, this is a two-step process, with the first step of this being transmitted to Florida Commerce. The adoption hearing will be scheduled at a future board meeting date, which allows for county staff and the consultant time to address any comments or responses from the state reviewing agencies prior to adoption of the board. Once the element is adopted, staff in coordination with the consultant and the Department of Commerce will review the draft land development code regulations as part of the implementation tool for the area critical state concern. That'll be done later on. On August 28th, 2024, staff held a public outreach meeting at the South Beaches Community Center. This meeting was well attended with approximately 254 residents in attendance in person and online. In addition to an online survey and questionnaire was published on the county's website, those results are included in this packet. Of the 732 comments received, five requested creation of an oversight committee. Analysis of the public input through both email and survey that received prior to September 6, 2024 is included for the board to consider. Input received after September 6 will be attached as separate from the analysis. The public input was primarily focused on key topics such as density intensity, sea turtle protection, shoreline hardening, clear cutting, conservation, stormwater management. Below are examples of policies and objectives contained in the element that address these concerns. So those were density intensity, sea turtle projection and shoreline hardening, clear cutting, conservation, stormwater management. So staff has prepared a draft element to include the goals, objectives, and policies included in the attachment. This item will be presented to the Board of County Commissioners on November 7th, 2024. Bonnie Landry and Associates is in attendance to answer any questions, along with Darcy McGee from Natural Resources Management to answer any questions that you have.
All right, thank you, Mr. Jeff. So is there anyone in the audience wanting to speak for or against this item? If you could come down here to the front row and we could create a line, I'll give you 2 minutes each to speak, and as soon as the buzzer goes off, let's please be respectful. Now, this is item H1. Anyone else would like to speak on this item, H1? You're wanting to go. I see you. You're good?
What if I sit here but don't speak? Is that okay?
That's fine. All right, sir, we'll start with you, and then when you get to the microphone, when you state your name and address for the record, get as close as you can so we can get you on record.
Okay. I'm Vince Lamb, 11590 Dragon Point Drive, Merritt Island. I'm going to have to adjust my time a little bit. I expected 3 minutes, but if so be it with 2, I can adjust. But I've been tracking this action since Representative Altman told me he was going to introduce it at the state, and I'm overall very supportive of it. I read the latest draft document that the county's prepared on this, and I feel like it's quite good. I appreciate the effort that went into it. I think there's still a bit of room for improvement. I'm deeply involved with the sea turtles, have been for 17 years, of leading turtle walks down there and working with the refuge. So, we live in an area with it's the best beach and one of the best beaches in the world for sea turtle nesting, and I appreciate this effort to protect it. I support the objectives taken forth from legislative intent, which you read a few minutes ago. I've read the document. This is not my area of expertise, so I'm counting on as much protection as we can get out of this, and I can't tell personally quite whether we're there or not. I have a couple of very specific ones. Policy 2.3, the sea turtle lighting ordinance. This policy states that the lighting ordinances should be reviewed periodically, but fails to identify the period. When Brevard County had the first lighting ordinance in the state, and to my knowledge, it's never been reviewed or changed. The Sea Turtle Conservancy is encouraging a review. I'd rather have periodically changed to some, every 5 years or every 10 years or something like that, and, not be quite that vague. Similar item on item 2.6, which is reevaluating the effectiveness of the coastal setback line. And this policy suggests reevaluating the effectiveness from time to time, and request a review of the FDEP 1981 coastal construction line if deemed appropriate.
All right.
Yeah. anyway, I'd like to see that.
But in
Okay.
a nutshell,
Yeah,
you're pretty much agreeable to a lot of the issues and just a couple to
just
be.
some specifics.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Good afternoon. Craig Wallace, Satellite Beach, 585 Hawksbill Island Drive. I'm also with the Brevard Indian River Lagoon Coalition. Our main concerns here are obviously protecting the lagoon, both from a watershed's perspective, any stormwater coming off any areas that are an issue. But our biggest concern is septic and sewer in the area. Any increase in additional septic tanks in that area with new development is a big concern of ours. I'm not sure that this, addresses that specifically enough, and I don't have the exact wordage, what I'd like to see changed. But my biggest concern is the additional new development creating, whether it's septic tanks or if we could get sewer down there, that would be great. But we know that's probably not going to happen in that area. So that's my biggest concern. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, sir. All right, Mr. Wise, is that correct? I said the wrong name. I'm sorry. No, I know. I didn't want to just upset him again.
No. Hi there.
Just messing with you, Mr. Scott.
That's all good. My name's Mel Scott, 6415 South A1A. Been a 30-year resident in the South Beaches, 30-year urban planner, so this is an area of expertise for myself. I do want to thank staff for their hard work. I'm very much in agreement. Jeffrey set the stage for the points that I understand you are affirming as a result of the state legislature's creation of this area. It's a very, very special area, not just to this county, but you can really speak in terms of the Western Hemisphere as it relates to the impact that this has on nesting sea turtles. So again, I'm just in full support. I understand that this is the beginning of a longer journey that will include this coming back for adoption. Right. So at this point in time, you've got a really nice assembly of clay, and you're about to make a really nice clay pot, and I'm in full support of this. Thank you.
Hey, thank you, sir.
Mel, thank you for having something positive.
Sir, if you'd come on up, state your name and address for the record.
My name is Robert Logston. I live at 9020 South A1A in the South Beaches area. Forgive me if I stumble a little bit. I'm not used to doing any of this, but I just wanted to point out some serious contradictions between the Florida statute for the area of critical concern and the new BBIA policy. There's a minimum of at least 2, 3A and 3B of the legislation intent, and 4 items, 5B, 5C, 5H, 5J, of the guiding principles that are conflicting with the BBIA proposals. All these conflictions would result in additional nutrient contribution to the lagoon via language inserted in the BBIA policy for coastal element future land use property designations. According to the BBIA residential designations, a Res 1 owner that is adjacent to a Res 4 property could meet the criteria to transition to a Res 2. And here's an example of a 1-acre fella that increases density, and his existing septic tank is old, and the nutrient reduction system is probably less than 50%. His new home on the same 1 acre installs a required 65% reduction system, so he is now contributing an 85% load. The math's undeniable. If he's required to follow the state statute that was established to protect the lagoon, his Res 2 increased destination bumps up to 70% nutrient contribution to the lagoon, and his old system that was only 50%. Then when you look at the criteria to allow a planned unit development, 25% increase, bonus increase, this ultimately will reflect the overwhelming number of the Florida land use designation of, or future land use designation of Res 1. Take 10 Res 1 lots and add 2.5 additional septic tanks that increase the density. We will be contributing additional nutrients to the lagoon. Even though the BBIA criteria, I got like 2 sentences. Please.
Okay.
All right. The higher density designations would require public water and sewer. We don't have that. There are no public sewer plants in the plan. There's the existing South Beaches plant is only at 85% capacity, and there are no plans to expand in it. I'm going to urge you folks to remove all the language added to the existing future land use coastal element property designations. Thanks a lot. Appreciate it.
Thank you, sir. Sir, if you could come up and state your name and address for the record.
Sure. My name is Mark Chancis, 8885 Highway A1A, Melbourne Beach, Florida. How you all doing? I'm also the executive director of the BBIA, Barrier Islands Preservation and Preservation Association, and have an organization that was started in the 30s. I mean, 30 years ago. It wasn't started in the 30s. Started in 1990, and was the key negotiator and final stamp of approval on the public shopping center down there. To allow it, and it was traded off. And that's what we do. We understand that there's significant desire to develop down there, but it can't be developed because of what this gentleman is saying about the sewer, the water, flooding. Evacuation is already 3 times the amount of time it takes as required by the state. Specifically in H1 BBIA 12.1, I'd like to take the sentence that says, not increase residential densities, and insert the words or intensity so that we don't end up with commercial properties there. In 12.8, take out the entire section. We do not have community commercial on the South Beaches. Why are you going to open the door of talking about community commercial when there is no community commercial zoning down there? In 12.7, neighborhood commercial, like to take the items of public facilities and recreational uses and move them to the classifications of public facilities and recreational uses, okay? Otherwise, it's confusing, and you can end up with residential properties where they end up moving, someone comes in with a public facility, the county, and they already have their own, or recreational uses, because there's a lot of language about marinas in this, and we don't want there to be confusion that they can put it in a marina because it says recreational uses on the residential property. Move it to the recreational section. That's about it. Other than I also agree we should be removing the PUDs because there's only one PUD on the beaches, which is the golf course. Why even mention PUD if there aren't any PUDs? It just confuses things and makes everybody, and fodder for lawyers.
All right. Thank you, sir.
I'm not against lawyers, but.
Hello, my name is Eva.
You can pull that to you there, Miss Eva.
All right, my name is Eva Nagamahali, and I'm Mel's neighbor. I'm at 6501 South Highway A1A. I'm just adding to what I've heard here. I don't have that added information except to simply say that that is the most beautiful area that I've ever seen, and therefore I want that oversight. I want people to be keeping it the way it is, no high density for this area, and keep it for the animals, the wild animals, the turtles, and for single-family homes as much as possibly can be done. And I appreciate your looking at this, and thank you. It's a great place.
Thank you, ma'am. Anyone else would like to speak for or against this item, or I'm going to close the audience there? Sorry, you're closed. All right, seeing that, I'm going to bring it back to the board, and I know John, Mr. Robert.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. As pointed out by the public, the couple of things that I do have a document that I've provided for staff. I'd like to hand that as Exhibit 1 into the record, and it actually identifies the same items that the public pulled out. The first one is the intent of the Brevard Barrier Area Island Area, BBIA, area of critical concern, and the most important function for this creation of the area concern was to limit density and intensity of the development within the area, and that's referenced in the executive summary on page 7. And if you use the public comment that was attached, the blue overwhelming is intensity and density reduction. So that concern is for that area, and I'm a consultant for FEMA and evacuation. I spent 30 years in search and rescue. Hurricane Katrina, a bunch of bad ones. Hurricane Michael, Hurricane Florence, Hurricane Harvey. Done a lot of victim recovery. So evacuation for this area is extremely critical, which is why it became an area of critical concern. So with that, they brought up a number of elements concerning loading for both water supply and wastewater. It's a little bit more. There's solid waste, there's other elements, there's utility corridors, there is response for search and rescue, and response for medical and law enforcement as well. But for me, I forget which one brought up the planned urban developments. I think that was you, Mark, right? Okay. That's primarily what I would like to have. I'm all for this document, by the way. But if we strike item D for, residential 1, item D for residential 2, item D for residential 4, and item D for residential 6, and item E for residential 15, and item E for neighborhood commercial, and the community commercial, I found a document that I don't see there's any residential commercial there. So what that says is the planned urban development allows you 1.25 increase in density. And that is completely counter to the intent of the area of critical concern. If we're here to reduce and restrict development, we should not incorporate an option or a loophole that allows 1.25 increase in that. So that's open for discussion. I'll make a motion here lately, but I'd bring it back to the board and let that be discussed.
Thank you, Mr. Robert. Any other comments from the board?
Yes, my name is Erica Orris, and I am new here, and so I have been appointed to District 3, and I was also at that meeting, and I live in the South Shore, so I love it there, and I agree with everything that's been said. However, I do think that, as we look at the documents that have been put forth, everyone's mainly concerned with the density, right? The density and the intensity. And it doesn't say that. So if we could make a motion to strike where it says simply, and I'm on the wrong page here, but I think it says, in keeping with CM 7.1, shall not increase residential densities. And it may want to say their intensity as well. And then also every other place that you have alluded to, Robert. And additionally, when it goes into future land use, up to a 25% density bonus, that's, I don't think, the intent of this document. So, certainly everyone appeared very, very concerned at the meeting about density and intensity. So everything else, I think, can be worked out. That seems to be the largest concerns.
Any other comments, board?
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, I have several comments. One is a general comment about the document itself. There's a whole lot of shoulds in there instead of shalls. And should is a very weak word. And I would really like to see that should replaced with either strongly recommended or shall strongly encourage. And the reason for doing that is when you say should, what your person that you're talking to or writing to hears is, okay, he wants me to do this, but he doesn't really care whether I do it or not. But if you change it with strongly and put that strongly encouraged word, now you're saying, yes, I understand he is very, very strong about this. He does care about it. And it's kind of like when a mother tells her child, you're going to do this or else. That or else is implied in the word strongly. So the person hearing it says, I don't want to find out what or else means. The county's been very cooperative. If I don't do what this was, they might very well not be cooperative with me. So I would like to see that changed, both in this document and in the one we're going to review next.
Right.
And then in addition to that, I did have some specific comments. Policy 4.7 says we should require stormwater retrofits. I would like to see that changed to shall. There's no better time to do that retrofitting than when you're doing redevelopment. Let's see. And I had a few more changes if you don't mind. Policy 4.9 says that people on the water liveaboards are moored for over 3 days. And my question is, otherwise what? If they just dump the 3 days worth of sewage into the lagoon? Can't we prohibit dumping into the lagoon? That's a question I don't know the answer to. But if we can, I would like to see us do it. Another question I had was in criteria 4.10, criteria B, says first inch of stormwater runoff. Now, does that mean the first inch of rain, or does that mean the first inch of water that flows out of the retention area? And I was just wondering how that inch of runoff is determined.
Mr. Barcher, can I just interrupt? What page are you on?
I'm sorry, on 410, criteria B. I don't have the page number, I'm sorry.
It's page 24.
Right.
Page 8 of the BBIA.
Does
Mr. Chairman?
do we have someone on staff?
I
who
can answer that.
Yes,
Okay.
sir.
The 24-year one-day event is a theoretical storm where the inch of rainfall is the total inch over that area, and that will be the retaining area. So it is with the South Florida Water Management District, the South Florida Water Management District, all the water management districts use the same criteria.
Okay, so it's essentially, it's
a permit requirement.
It's measuring the amount of rain that's coming in that area.
It's a theoretical storm, yes.
Okay. As opposed to actual runoff.
That's correct. It's a theoretical storm. But that's to calculate a volume for the either retention, treatment, or whatever they need to use.
Okay. And then policy 5.2, criteria A. There's several sentences in there, and we're mixing up should and shall, and I was just wondering why aren't all of those shoulds in that criteria be shall? Is that a legal problem for us?
Mr. Barcher, I think generally with respect to the land use chapter, in this case the BBIA, the real rubber meets the road with the land development regulations, which are to come. So this is just general guiding principles, and then where the more strict laid out requirements are in the LDRs.
Okay.
So what I would add, what I would add to that is this is the framework document that will set up for us to go back in and update our land development code regulations to further define what we're trying to do to meet these guiding principles.
Okay. Then in policy 6.13, 6.13, criteria F, we mentioned sea level rise. And I had a question about how does that fit with the governor's banning of the use climate change? Are we stepping into a messy area there?
Despite that ruling,
29.
the governor has allocated a lot of money and regulations requiring cities and counties to look at future conditions. The Resilient Florida program has distributed millions of dollars to help communities do vulnerability analyses and risk analyses of critical facilities. So we were actually required to do a peril of flood section, which I think you all approved last year, that was added to the comp plan. So we're okay with that.
Okay.
We're in good standing.
Just didn't want us to offend the governor by using something that's related to climate change.
We'd be in trouble if we didn't. Thank you.
Then in policy 9.4, you need to correct the spelling of previous. And in policy 11.2, criteria C, why are we putting industrial area uses adjacent to the lagoon? It seems to me we should, that shouldn't be in there at all.
I have this feeling that there's going to be a lot of rework done on this, but I just am thinking off the top of my head that to just get it going, I'm so thrilled that Thad Altman, Representative Altman, and you know, our Senator Wright went ahead and came up with this. It's been 40 years since we've identified a critical area of concern. And so if we can just get it going, and I think that maybe because it is the highest concern of the analysis is 159 people were concerned about density and intensity. And I think that's the most important thing. If we're going to I make a motion to just address that. And then the rest of it we can work out. I mean, that's certainly the most important part. And spelling errors and things like that, we can get to all of that.
Yes, ma'am.
I could have made a spelling error, you know, so.
I
Believe it or
didn't
not,
have, I didn't have any other questions or comments about that, this particular document.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion. Or unless everybody's finished the discussion.
Are we done with discussion, board?
I think we are.
Don't
Okay.
look at me. I've got something for H2. not
Mr.
H1.
Robert, here we go.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to incorporate Exhibit 1, which would be the removal of the comments for the planned urban developments, and approve this plan.
That's his document.
I need a second.
Second.
Okay, we've got a motion by Robert, a second by Ron, and you want to incorporate
Exhibit 1.
all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Great work, guys, down there at that end.
I think staff, if I can say so, I think staff and our public concerns
Yes.
did an excellent job. This is a framework, as was mentioned, and it's step 1.
Well, it's a great start.
Yes.
Very good. Okay, item H2.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Item H2 is the transmittal of the evaluation and appraisal review based on amendments to the comprehensive plan. The application number is 24LS00002 to the State Land Planning Agency, Florida Commerce, for the review under the state coordinated review process established by section 163.3184, subsection 4 Florida statutes. Give me 1 second. So Chapter 85-55 Laws of Florida amended the Chapter 163, Part 2 Florida statutes that require local governments to comply with amended requirements. On September 8th, 1988, the Board of County Commissioners of Brevard County approved ordinance number 88-27 adopting the 1988 Brevard County Comprehensive Plan, and that has been amended from time to time. So Brevard County reviewed the requirements of section 163.3191 Florida statutes and determined that amendments to the comprehensive plan would be necessary to comply with the statutory requirements. The county notified Florida Commerce in a determination on November 28, 2023. The county now has 1 year to prepare and transmit the necessary amendments to Florida Commerce for the review and pursuant to the state coordinated review process outlined in section 3184, subsection 4 Florida statutes. Florida Commerce has established that December 1st, 2024 is the due date for the transmittal of the ear-based amendments. Again, Bonnie Landry Associates is the consultant that has prepared the ear, and the ear is the 15 elements of the comprehensive plan, with the exception of the historic preservation element and the property rights element, which do not require amendments. The amendments consist of proposed new goals, objectives, and policies, and revisions to previously adopted goals, objectives, and policies for the following elements: conservation, water or surface water management, recreation, open space, housing, potable water, sanitary sewer, solid waste, and hazardous materials, transportation, coastal management, future land use, intergovernmental coordination, capital improvements, public school facilities, and the glossary. The members proposed a new element, Part 16, to the comprehensive plan establishing goals, objectives, and policies relating to the just heard Brevard Barrier Island Area. Once the ear-based amendments have been reviewed by Florida Commerce, they will issue an objections, recommendations, and comments report within 60 days of determining that the transmittal package is complete. The county will then have 180 days to make changes to address the ORC report and adopt the ear-based amendments. So this will be heard at the November 7th Board of County Commissioners meeting. Staff is here to answer any questions along with Bonnie Landry Associates. I do have the directors from the associated departments here to answer any questions as well. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Jett. Now, is there anybody in the audience want to speak for or against this item? Item H2, does anyone want to speak for or against this item? Just you? Okay, well, I'm going to give you...
He's got a hearing thing going on, so I have to talk loud next to him.
I'm going to close it to the floor
I have it
then.
also.
So I'm going to give you 3 minutes this time because we got less people.
Well, can I take the minute and put it on the other one?
Your name and address again, please, sir, for the record.
Okay. My name is Mark Chances, 8885 South Highway A1A, Melbourne Beach, Florida, 32951. Number one, the plan has a future land use for all of the South Beaches as neighborhood commercial. It's like a red marker that goes over the map for all of the beaches. I don't get it. Who thinks that all the homes and all the Res 1 that's on future land use right now is all going to be future land use neighborhood commercial? Who wrote that? Does that make any sense to anyone here? Have anybody driven down there? There's no way. But if you look on the future land use map, I don't know if you have it, can you bring it up? Can you bring up the one? Okay, well, she's doing that. The next question again is, I didn't read all 670 pages because I only saw it recently. I had no power and no internet for 5 days, so I finally got around to it on Saturday. But I did get to the point where every line was crossed out on the manatee protection. Every line, 100% of them. Is it added someplace else, Jeff?
It is, what it does, it allows for staff to reference the manatee protection plan. And Darcy's coming back up to, that's in her wheelhouse, but my understanding is that it just changes the location of it.
Okay. While she's doing that, can you stop the clock, because I might need 3 minutes.
Mr. Shintis, is this what you're looking for, this future land use map?
Yes, it is.
Yes, okay.
If you take a look at the red line, that's all the South Beaches, okay? And if you look at the chart here, it says that all the South Beaches is projected to be future land use, neighborhood commercial. Isn't that what we're talking about here? We're talking about not having intensity. We're talking about reducing intensity or keeping it at least the same. We're not talking about killing growth. We're talking about a gradual growth that can be handled with the existing water, flooding, evacuation, and everything else that's needed in order for people to live in a place. Okay, this is a very thin, fragile barrier island. It's always moving. A storm just came and it moved. There's another storm that's materializing and it's going to move. We cannot have any more density and we cannot have any more intensity. Okay, 2 years ago, they almost passed a bakery that was selling international goods. They had a website that sold internationally and it almost passed to go on A1A with no sewerage. So everything they would have had, all the waste, would have poured right into the Indian River Lagoon, okay? That's what this is saying. This is saying you can have all these neighborhood commercial places, okay? And with today's communication, you can have a neighborhood, a commercial neighborhood place that is shipping stuff all over the world, and you would never know it because the county is not proactive. It's waiting for someone to complain. So the county can see it and they will not go out. It's passive. That's the way they enforce. Okay, that's a problem. Okay, we won't get into that. The next item is removing the PUD references in the neighborhood commercial. Again, why are there PUD references in neighborhood commercial? That will allow hotels. That will allow, people think it's only about units. But PUD allows hotels, marinas, huge recreational facilities that we cannot have. We cannot have the beaches as a destination for that. It's fishing, it's surfing, but if you go ahead and build some kind of mass recreational facility that everybody comes to, you're going to destroy the turtle habitat, you're going to ruin everything down there that's related, in addition to having more effluent going into the Indian River Lagoon. Okay, so all references to the PUD need to be removed. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Erica, you want this back?
Yeah, I was going to bring it up, but you already brought it up.
Sir, would you like to speak? Well, I'd need you to come back up here if you don't mind, though. If you're wanting to speak.
No, I don't want to speak. I just want to ask a couple of questions after the meeting, possibly of.
Okay, after the meeting. Anyone else want to speak on item H2 before I close it? Okay, I'm going to close it for public comment. All right, seeing that, I bring it back to the board, open it for discussion with staff. We have any questions for staff?
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, sir.
Just to give Mark a peace of mind, my Exhibit 1 includes your map with the question on why we have it there. Okay, so, and our new member just.
That was not in the.
No, but that's correct. We can make it so that we can do the same, apply the standards or the generic intention of this framework to the H2. So that's the game plan. That's my game plan. So, Yes, and again, I think everybody's in a unison with that this is a giant step in the right direction.
There are 1 million people a year that come and visit this place.
Right.
Okay? And don't kill the golden goose.
Mr. Chair,
So-
if Mr. Shantis wants to come up to the podium, just so we get it on the record, if he's going to speak from the audience.
Understood.
Just emphasize that. There are 1 million people a year that now come and visit because of the beauty and the nature that is down there, okay?
Right.
If you change that, okay, and you turn it into Indian Harbor Beach, Indian Atlantic, which is a different kind of a place, a different kind of living, okay, you will eliminate all those 1 million people, which is on its way to some other big number, okay? And a lot of this is ecotourism, and a lot of this is people coming down there and spending money on the neighborhood commercial little places and spending a fortune when they come across 192 before they even get there, okay? And you don't want to kill that. This is a destination around the world where people come from, you know?
Mr. Chair.
Let's not kill it.
Mr. Chair, if I may just ask a question for clarification from staff standpoint. The map that is being discussed, is that the 2045 future land use map? I believe it's
Correct.
page. Okay, so on that map, it shows a red line around the area of critical concern to identify the boundary. It's a little bit confusing, I can see from the legend, because community commercial is demonstrated as solid red in the map. There are 2 other maps on 823 through 825, which get more specific with the future land use in the area of critical concern, and you can see on those maps that the entire area is not being designated as community commercial. In fact, there's very, very limited community commercial identified.
Thank you, sir, for that clarification.
Okay. Thank you, because it's very confusing, you know? Okay.
All right.
So, Mr. Chairman,
We're
I did.
done? Hold on here, let me.
Go ahead.
Unless he has another question.
Do you have a question?
No, I was gonna do a clarification.
Sir, are you done? Do you need to say anything else?
Someone was going to talk to me about the manatee situation, and at the end of what we were talking about, and explain why it was all crossed off, and that was, I think that was Darcy. And here she comes. Sorry to make you get up twice.
That's okay, get my steps in. Okay, yes, Mark, we deleted a lot of that because we're adopting the MPP by reference into the comp plan. We haven't updated our plan since 2003, and it's time, so we want to go in, do boating studies, and update the plan.
Oh, so you haven't done that yet, but you're
Yeah,
going
no,
to.
we're getting ready to do that, so that would leave
Okay,
a
so
lot
that's
of really
unclear, too.
specific conflicting
Because
information
it looks,
potentially.
from a bystander like me, it looks like, okay, you're removing all this stuff because now marinas can come in here without having to
Oh, no,
worry about manatees.
No, that's absolutely not the
And then they don't have
case.
another permit that they got, and it's much easier, you know,
Yeah,
so.
no, that's not the
Okay,
case.
that's what it looks like.
Okay, and I understand that, and I apologize, but there was
No,
a
that's
lot
okay.
of specificity in there that really wasn't
I'm glad you
appropriate.
clarified. Thank you very
Okay.
much. And
Thank
I'm
you.
done. Thank you.
All right, thank you, sir. All right, it is going to be closed to the floor this time. All right, I bring it back to the board and open it up for discussion up here.
Yes, Mr. Chairman. As with H1, my Exhibit 1, if we can also incorporate it for Exhibit 1 for H2. The primary concern, I think, of the public is with the PUDs and the 1.25 increase in density, when intensity and density are the critical factors here. So if the board doesn't have any other comments, I'd like to make a motion. No, go ahead.
Not yet.
You know, you guys are preempting stuff today, and that's not really good.
My apologies.
You'll get a chance to have your vote. Mr. Chairman, I have a list of questions and comments regarding this document. How do you want to handle it? You want to go through each line item, or do you want me to
Is that
submit it to
questions for
staff? What's that?
Is that questions for staff?
Yeah, it's all for staff, not for us. It's for staff.
How would you like to handle that, Mr. Jeff? Because we got a,
Mr. Hoppengarten wants to go line by line, that's fine.
Okay. Fine.
Hey, John, I have a list of questions too. Do you want to try to have them coordinate them so that they're going through the document?
I would, if you let me speak first, you can cross off the ones that may be the same on yours, and then you can speak. How about that?
That sounds fine with me.
Okay, good deal. All right, but some of the mine are just minor questions, and I just wanted to know, because there's a lot of cross-outs in this document, and I want to determine if we are not going to do anything when they're crossed out, that that particular item is being eliminated from the plan. So let's start on page 455, which is policy 4.5. C is crossed out.
John, you said conservation policy 4.5 criteria C?
Yes, which is crossed out on my document.
Darcy, do you want?
Come on, Darcy.
Darcy, we're going to put you a chair up here.
Just pull that up real quick. I
I'm trying to pull it
apologize.
up. It's a big document, so.
Is it pulling up
Do it
now?
here.
Okay.
They might have it up there.
Is it up already?
I think Jeff has it up.
Yeah, it's right here. It's the estuarine floodplains.
Okay, my question is, why is this crossed out? We are no longer going to leave the floodplain in its natural state? Or do you have it written somewhere else?
It's contained elsewhere in the floodplain protection elements. There is no annual floodplain of the Indian River Lagoon, of the estuarine floodplain.
Okay, it might have been easier if there was a reference to where it was going to be further in the document, rather than just taking it out completely and leaving a void.
Okay,
Okay? Thank you.
thank you.
Okay, policy 4.7, you did some language change here. You're taking out coastal floodplain and just said floodplain of the Atlantic Ocean.
Coastal floodplain, we didn't have like a coastal floodplain the way it was referred to in the policies. The floodplain on the Atlantic Ocean is a velocity floodplain, so we tried to update the language to make it more technically correct. We still do regulate development on the Atlantic coast through the coastal element in our coastal setback lines, and then the building department addresses the actual floodplain elevations, because they're based on, not on elevations, but velocity, and I think Anna knows more about this, feet above, so many feet of freeboard. So it was more technically correct.
Okay. On the criteria below that, you've crossed out A, which was to prohibit the development within the annual coastal floodplain.
Same thing, there is no annual coastal floodplain.
So you crossed it out because of annual?
Yes, because of the terminology doesn't mesh up with the way we apply the floodplain regulations.
Okay. So are you prohibiting development on the floodplain?
Again, no, we have for the Atlantic coast, we have our coastal setback line that regulates the development that's allowable there in terms of the land uses, so you have to stay back from the dune. In terms of the floodplain, which is typically, out further, where there is the VE floodplain, the velocity floodplain, the building department is going to regulate that on what elevation the first floor should be. So, but we do regulate where that development can go, and then once you just figure out where it goes, the building department addresses the floodplain.
Okay, I believe it was last month that we reviewed something like that on the level of the floodplain. Do you remember?
Yeah, that ordinance was for the base flood elevation for mobile homes, and it was plus 1 foot above that level. But
Right.
that ordinance is on hold, by the way.
Oh, is
Based on
it?
our discussions at the last meeting. Yes, sir.
Okay, good, thank you. Appreciate that one. Let's see. 455 minimum criteria. Okay, 461.
I'm sorry, John, what was that?
On page 461, item 6, you're crossing out beginning January 1st, 2010. Are you going to put a date in that for mixed-use land development activities? That evidently was an older date that you had in the previous document. Can we set some dates, some scheduling on some of this stuff?
I believe the consultants recommend striking where there's dates in there. I don't know.
Because they don't want to hold your feet to the fire?
No, it had to do with, I think that was the date of the change of that policy, if I remember correctly.
I don't foresee a need to have the date
Yeah,
referenced in
no.
there. That was superfluous to have the date in there.
Okay, so it wasn't like a deadline
Correct.
To actually do that? Okay. All right. 468. Policy 7.2 has been canceled. Localized soil erosion is noted by the Code Enforcement, Natural Resources Management Department, or the other county agency will be contacted and they're recommended shall incorporate. Why is that stricken?
I'm sorry, we have never coordinated with LandCan, and I don't know who they are.
Yeah, I didn't know who they were. They're not defined here.
We found a lot of stuff in there that was, not been updated in many years, even beyond the 7 years from our last year.
Mm-hmm.
So we really tried to do an excellent cleanup of stuff that's out of date, old references, old agencies that may no longer exist, and we don't do this, so we struck it out.
Okay, I just didn't want them taking away any of your responsibilities.
No.
Okay. Keep
Thank
your
you.
oversight. 475, what's a type 1 aquifer?
The type 1 aquifer recharge areas are where they have what we define as highly permeable soils, which are 20 inches per hour over the first 5 feet. And they're also above 30 feet in elevation and GVD. And they also are within areas of Titusville's well field. So it's an area where there's drinking water that you want to protect.
Okay. Because I noticed that there was, you crossed out new septic tanks on C on 475. Can we get rid of septic tanks?
That would be wonderful. However, there's existing lots there that are, have been there for forever, and they still require septic tanks up there. And also some of the area is in with the city of Titusville. So we thought it was the fair thing to do.
I mean, if you're over the aquifer and you have a septic field, it's going to
Yes.
leach into the aquifer eventually. And I'm surprised that they're even allowing it. I mean, you're taking out fuel storage tanks, which is a pollutant, of course, hazardous material.
Well, and I think the treatment systems are much more improved since 1988 when all this was written. So if you can get improved treatment for the lots that are existing in the area that have not yet been developed.
Okay. You don't want to take out septic tanks?
No.
Why, you have one at your house?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. All right.
As well as everybody on North Merritt Island.
Page 488. Objective SF1, it says identify existing stormwater system deficiencies. I mean, it's very weak in that paragraph. Any way you can strengthen that up?
Sorry, I'm just trying to put this in context.
Yeah, it's difficult with the strikeouts.
The intent is still fulfilled with this. I think with this surface water element, when we went through with our stormwater department and with Sorrel, that there was some outdated terminology again on B maps and the way the terminology was used. So we still tried to keep the intent of everything there, but make the language a little bit easier to read and a little bit more up to date. This isn't weakening anything. It's still looking at retrofitting existing stormwater systems where we can.
Yeah, but you're not proposing that they do it, you're just suggesting. It was some of the, like the language that Ron was mentioning about shall or should, you're doing something here that this paragraph doesn't really mandate anything.
Yeah, and that's an excellent point. One thing with existing development, some lots and some, commercial facilities or subdivisions that were developed a long time ago may not have existing stormwater, or they have really deficient stormwater management, and they may not have the ability to treat it in the way that we would all like to see it be treated. So what we do is where you're coming in to upgrade a facility, we do try to get that retrofit done to the best of the ability of that the site can hold. For instance, you need to upgrade for the new development, but to force a retrofit for previous development that could have been around for decades and is not possible on the site could be problematic for us if we set that absolute standard for someone.
What if they wanted to do an improvement, so they go to the building department to get a permit? Couldn't you then require them to upgrade?
Yes, for the new portion of the development, they would need to meet the current codes.
How about a renovation?
Internal renovation, we don't require upgrades in stormwater, I believe, in there. I think we specified that it was, if you're doing everything internally, that you're not triggering an increase in the structure size and the impervious footprint.
Okay.
It really depends on the improvements that they're proposing.
Yeah, I'm sure it does, yeah. I'm just, I was trying to put a little heavier language into this too.
Yeah, I understand.
So John, just to help you, so the way that this is set up is that you have the goals and objectives. The objective is what you're trying to do. There's no policy in there. We're just saying, hey, this is what we like to do as an objective.
Mm-hmm.
And then what follows that is the policy. How do you implement that?
Okay, I understand that. If your objective, though, is much harsher than your policy, it's the policy that rules. But the objective means, like, at the end of the day, you really want to do this. That's why I was looking for something a little stronger. Okay. 492. SF 2.1 on 492. You've struck out stormwater management plans and you replaced it with stormwater area studies. A study is a study. A plan is actionable.
And I'm looking at Virginia as I say this. Again, the terminology, I don't think we have stormwater management plans, but we do a lot of studies. For instance, the big study we just did in North Merritt Island recently that looked at the entire area north of Hall Road, ground truth all the structures, and now we're incorporating that study into the development review. So if you're doing a site plan or a subdivision, you're going to need to take that study, which is that is boots on the ground, best available data, and you need to show that you're not going to have any adverse impacts using that study that was done on North Merritt Island, for
Is
example.
that the one that John presented at the North Brevard Homeowners Association meeting? It's an engineering study. Is that the one?
That sounds like it could be.
For runoff?
Yes, it was a big study. It took a number of years to do, and we're very proud of it.
Okay. But you're implementing it. Once you implement the study, doesn't it become a plan? I'm looking
Well,
at language
We
here.
have regulations based around the study, so if
Right.
you were coming in for a subdivision and you're on North Merritt Island, the code says you cannot have any adverse impacts
On your
in that area, and that you have to accommodate both the water quality and the water quantity. So now you've got to meet not just your flow, but your volume. Kind of getting in the weeds here, but the code, you take the code and then incorporate the study. That is part of what the developers will need to use to demonstrate that they're meeting the code, if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, I understand. You also amended it. I remember that some of the neighbors said, well, what if I were to put a shed on my property? Would I have to go through this study? And the answer was yes. But then they took it out.
Well, we left it in there as a prohibition until the study was done, and then once the study was done, we said, okay, you can have an accessory structure if you demonstrate no adverse impact. This is, the study's going to be a living document. We're going to continue to build on it. With rainfall mitigation, there's so much data out there now, so it'll, these models will build on themselves and they'll continue to improve, and the code is, the big thing is there is no adverse impact. So that's where we're going to fall on all of the development, is to make sure they're not going to cause flooding to adjacent properties or downstream.
Yeah, I know he'll be happy to hear that. Okay. 496, I assume this is somewhere else, policy 4.7. You've taken out the mosquito impoundment?
That was relocated into, do you recall where we
Fisheries.
put that? We actually took the whole thing and moved it, so it's still in there, although we did move.
This was a long read, by the way.
It is. We've been working on it for a little while.
Yeah, I was working on it this week,
Yeah.
or last week. and-
Yeah, the mosquito section was moved, and I apologize, I don't know off the top of my head, but let's see if I can.
So we are still handling the mosquito problem?
Absolutely, yes,
Okay.
and there was no other changes.
That's all I needed to know. Okay.
Hey, John? Getting along with yours, I found that is located in a section about fisheries.
Thank you.
I don't know what mosquitoes have to do with fisheries, but,
Food.
oh, it's food, okay.
Yeah, it's fish food.
It looks like the mosquito impoundments reference was moved to the conservation element.
Why, are we conserving mosquitoes now?
Conservation 3.5, potentially? That,
You have a page, perchance?
Yes, it's policy, it's in conservation element 3.5, which is on page 451.
Oh, it's back somewhere, 451. Oh, okay, 3.5. Okay. All right, 502, 1.10, ocean breezeways, we still doing those?
I'm going to defer to Jeffrey on that one.
Which one?
110.
Here, breezeways.
Yeah, that's still part, that's in our land development code regulations.
Okay, but it's being stricken from this document?
Did we move that?
I don't recall, that one was outside of my purview.
It was just moved to the following objective.
It's in there someplace.
So
Where?
objective- So,
Policy ROS 1.2.2.
Okay.
yeah, so it's 1 point, it's on page 503. ROS 1.2.3.
I got it. And yeah, 2.2 and 2.3. Okay, that's fine. All right, on 503, the goal, provide a comprehensive program of active and passive recreation that meets the needs of the public. You no longer have that as a goal?
That one was moved as well. I would tell you that it's part of 1.2 under the visual appeal, up on the top of the page.
Visual appeal, okay. So that's an objective, not a goal?
Correct.
Okay. All right. 525. This is going to go on forever. How much time are we getting? You want me to get to the school board stuff?
You said it, not me.
On 525, policy HOU 1.1.2, just add the word addition after fifth.
John, we're on the 8th edition of those.
Oh, we're on the 8th? Okay.
So I'm in favor of it being struck and just reference.
Florida Building Code?
Parentheses, latest edition.
Yeah, you could put latest edition of the Florida Building Code.
Well,
Because you
I
have
believe
fifth-
the fifth is actually struck.
Yeah, it is.
So the way it reads is for
Oh,
just the Florida Building
yeah,
Code.
okay. It's difficult to see that. Okay. All right. I'll buy that. All right. Okay, that was good. These were good. 542. On policy it's PW 2.3. You've added in there maximize reuse of treated wastewater and water conservation techniques while maintaining an adequate reuse level of service to recover and diminish the demand for potable water. Are you referring to the fact that you're going to treat wastewater as recycled water, or are you talking about in a treatment plant? Hey there. What are you doing?
Sorry, sir, can you repeat that question?
No.
Okay.
You want me to? Really? I just wanted to know if you're using recycled water or it's in a waste treatment plant. That's the only question there.
Reuse water comes from a waste treatment plant.
Okay, so it's already processed, okay. All right, but it's not, you wouldn't consider that recycled water? It's treated water?
It's treated.
Okay. Okay. I just want to make sure that there's a difference between recycled water, which doesn't get treated as well as potable. And I didn't want that to be substituted as potable.
DEP has a requirement for anything to be distributed as reuse. It has to meet a criteria. So whether we call it treated or recycled, it has to meet a criteria.
So many parts per million and all
Yes.
that? Yes. Okay, all right. So you are aware of that?
Yes.
I thought so. Okay. 545 talks about well fields. We went through a whole, what was it, about a year ago, we went through the document on well fields and all the water that we needed for the next 30 years or so, 20 years?
Yeah, that was part of the water supply plan that we just did a couple months ago.
Yeah,
Yes.
that was the second time around, right? Okay, this one, You've struck 4.1. So it says you're not going to do a well field expansion program?
I think we reworded that for something, we're shifting toward a different well field, and I think the intent of this was superficial. As we're moving to reverse osmosis, that'll take us to a different criteria.
Okay. What's your percentage of RO that you're looking for from the total water supply?
Of the total as being what? Available?
All available water that we're using currently?
We have not gone through that due diligence yet.
Okay, but it's justified to have an RO because it's very expensive. Capital costs are expensive and operating costs are expensive.
Right, but there's a few factors. One is there's the source of water is more plentiful as superficial wells become drier or salinity. The technology of doing RO, in addition with the PFAS rules, RO is a proven form of removing PFAS.
That's correct.
Okay.
Does the county have an RO plant?
Not currently, no.
Your taxes will go.
So the only one is probably Melbourne, is that correct?
Palm Bay has one.
Yeah, that's right, Palm Bay and
Melbourne
Melbourne.
does.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, 590. SS 1.4. You took out the shall and you put a may, permit the use of on-site sewer treatment. That's your discretion, or should we make it shall? Ron?
Yeah, that's a component of the DEP. The DEP is now the agency that permits those.
You guys don't?
No,
Okay, so they may, but they won't shall.
correct.
Okay,
They have that discretion.
all right. 593. SS 3.7, county shall evaluate all fees and rates to assure adequate funds are available to fund all current and future projects. You going to do any revenue bonds for some of this stuff?
We will.
Okay. All right. Getting to the end here. Thanks for bearing with me. Hang on a second. Oh, I picked this, I'm looking at SS 311. You have health and environment needs here, but somewhere earlier in the document, you struck health and environment needs. And I don't recall where that was. It was like, it was missing, you had struck in the health and environment concerns
Right.
on the water, but now it's back in again, and I'm just wondering.
I mean, everything we do associated to water and sewer is all state and federal regulated, geared
Right.
around health and environment.
Okay. Okay, and on page 594, policy 3.16 is stricken. What's replacing that?
I don't think exactly where, but all this is saying, it's talking about outside of the 6 and 20-year future service area, which is verbiage from 20-some years ago, which didn't make sense. So because we're identifying a utility service boundary, that's what we're focused around.
Okay. All right. The last thing I have is from the school district, which I happen to represent. They had reviewed this document and they were fine with it. There was one thing that they were concerned about. On policy 1.1, on 1013. It talks about the county shall maintain a level of service standards of the public schools based upon the interlocal agreement for public school facility planning and school concurrency. They had wanted to add in there that the Brevard County hereby adopts the following level of service standards for public schools based upon the interlocal agreement for public school facility planning and school concurrency, which established the LOS for the district at 100% of Florida inventory of schoolhouses, which is fish capacity. The LOS is calculated by dividing enrollment by factored fish total capacity, permanent and relocatable student stations.
John, that's
You
been,
had taken the chart out,
it's been moved to the capital improvements plan.
which is where?
It's in the capital improvements element. It's,
Evidently, they weren't notified of that you had moved it to there, because they thought it would slip because they had requested it, and it was taken out of here. When you all took the chart out, which they were fine with, they didn't want that.
yeah, our conversations with them is that our understanding is that they knew it was being moved.
That's not my conversation this morning.
Okay.
Okay?
I'll make sure that they're aware that where
Okay.
it's moved to.
That's fine, just as long as they are happy. Okay.
Absolutely.
Mr. Chairman, thank you for your patience.
All right, thank you.
Mr. Chairman,
Mr. Ron.
on page 707, last item, item J, criteria J, it says binding development plans are not to be used to determine consistency. I think we did that in the past. We're not going to be allowed to do that in the future, is that correct?
What page is that?
707.
So we added that, Ron, just so clarify that the BDPs are not to be used to provide for the consistency as one might allude to in 1255. So it's not to prevent someone that in order to support their rezoning to, hey, we'll support AU zoning if you limit these uses. It's a BDPs as a mechanism to say, hey, I have Res 4 and I want to have RU17. I'm going to cap the density at 2 units to comply with the land use. That's what it's meant to stop.
And we have done that in the past. And you're saying that we
Cannot do that.
cannot do that in the future.
I'm just codifying it a little bit more.
And then related to that is what I think you just said. For example, another thing that we have done in the past is to grant a BU2 zoning with restrictions that are listed in the BDP.
Correct. That is not what the intent of this language is to
Okay,
do.
so that part doesn't change.
Yeah, no.
It's just the density, okay. And John reminded me of something. I don't have an exact, well, let's see. I do have one. In policy CI 1.1,
What page are you on?
I don't have a page number.
Are you under future land use?
Remember where that's at?
No, it's not in, well, no, it's not future land use, it's the
It's in the
CI
capital
element.
improvements.
It's at one after future land use.
Before that. What was the policy? CI what?
CI 1.1, criteria E3. We have the word rate that is used, but the word volume is omitted, it's not there. And if you say rate by itself, without using volume, you have a significant problem.
Yeah, you do.
Now, I noticed that I don't remember the exact places, but I've seen this problem in at least one other place, but I've also seen it where it was correct in some other places. So I'd just like for you to check wherever you use the word rate to be sure that you're doing rate and volume.
Okay, we'll check that.
Okay? And in the future land use 21, you mentioned a series of small area studies, and I noticed you didn't talk about the MIMS small area study. And I kind of felt personally offended by that. I just was curious if as to why that wasn't mentioned.
Got it.
That's all I got. Sorry.
Any other comments from board? Yes, sir, Mr. Robert.
Yeah, I have one. It would be on page 618 under transportation element. It'd be number 9-9. And it would be policy 2.6. You have struck, Brevard County shall monitor the needs of the coastal population and identify major transportation improvements to maintain levels for ensuring timely evacuation prior to impending disaster. So this goes back to evacuation routes and the level of service for evacuations. And right now, I think for a Category 5, we're not anywhere close. So I was curious on why that was struck.
We're trying to find that answer for you.
Okay. And that, so, and also on coastal management element, that would be the objective for CM8. Currently we're at 61 hours on a Cat 5, and, we need to have the evacuation times compatible. I mean, it's an objective. I understand it's a framework and an objective, but it's critical for life safety.
So, Mr. Sullivan, I was so what we did, and John Scott's not here, but my understanding is that we took that out to be consistent with their state evacuation plan. So it's still there, but it references the evacuation plan, and I don't have the language in front of me.
Yeah. Well, Jeff, you guys did a great job, I think, making a framework on this. And as everybody has pointed out with their individual mines, evacuation, life safety, storm surge, obviously. Other people have other criteria. So is there an opportunity for more input to this comprehensive plan prior to it being approved?
So let's talk about process for a second. So your recommendation will include all the discussions that we had, and
Right.
that will be forwarded on to the board for their recommendation, where they include your recommendation, in part, in full, or nothing. That's up to them to decide. So, and then once that, if the board decides to transmit, then it goes up to the state for their review.
Okay.
And then it'll come back to us for adoption with changes, without changes, and then it'll be up to the board to adopt with the pending changes. So, there's always opportunity to provide input from the public side as well. We just need to have time to assemble it and package it for the board meeting.
Yeah, 25 years. When you're referencing the standard building code, and Florida building code was 2000, yeah, it's a great job on upgrading all of the criteria,
Well, thank
marking
you.
out the stuff that is no longer in effect because of differing policy changes and stuff. I know that's a Herculean effort to cross the i's and dot the t's and cross the i's. So, yeah, a couple of the misspellings and other stuff is understandable. But yes, I think you guys have done a Herculean job. Thank you. I think it's long overdue, but you're doing it now, so this is great.
Well, thank you again.
Any other discussion? I need a motion.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to motion approval based on some of the recommendations and incorporating portions of the H1 elements. I recommend approval.
I need a second.
I'll second.
Okay, we got a motion by Robert, and I'm sorry, ma'am, what was your name? Erica. And a second by Erica. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That passed unanimously. Okay, item H9.
Just give us a second, Bill. He's going to.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chair. H9 comes out of a direction that was given to us by the Board of County Commissioners on April 9th. They directed staff to develop an ordinance to allow for accessory dwelling units where it may be appropriate for the purpose of encouraging affordable housing. So we've tried to do so with the proposal that's attached. Essentially what it does is create a new conditional use entitled accessory dwelling units and has a variety of conditions. So you would still, somebody who's looking to do this would still need to come for a conditional use permit, which goes before this board as well as the Board of County Commissioners. And it is inserted into, as a conditional use, into all residential single-family classifications, and then in the addition of rural residential mobile home classifications as well. We thought that was the most appropriate places to put it. There are some protections in those conditions I spoke to before. Specifically, it still must meet all the requirements of the future land use element of the comprehensive plan for density in particular. The primary structure on the lot where somebody's looking to put one of these structures can't have more than one kitchen already. The structure can't exceed a size permitted for all the other accessory structures. It can't be more, or there has to be, there's certain visibility protections built in for neighbors. And also we restricted these structures from being built in the coastal high hazard area as well as the area critical state concern that we just spoke about earlier. So when it comes to the area critical state concern, should there be a desire to have them, the time to discuss that would be after the adoption of the BBI element that we discussed earlier, and when we're discussing the land development regulations associated with that. So with that, we're seeking your recommendations to the Board of County Commissioners. There will be 2 additional public hearings at the board before the Board of County Commissioners, because this amends the actual permitted uses under zoning classifications. Thank you.
All right, thank you, sir.
Question.
Yes, sir, Mr. John.
Yes. Jeff, do you remember that young woman that came before us twice that wanted to put originally an Airbnb, and then, was she on the coastal high hazard, do you recall?
I don't believe she was. She was near a condition. She was up in Merritt Island. But I
Isn't
don't
that
believe
coastal
that-
high hazard?
Yeah, I don't believe that that property was in a coastal high hazard area.
Okay. I should have pulled it, but because I was reading all this stuff, it took my time away. In her case, the restriction was that she couldn't have a kitchen in the accessory building unit. Will this change that? Will she now be allowed to have one?
Do you want to take that?
I'm not familiar with those specific circumstances that you were referencing, but yes, generally
Essentially, she
speaking.
she wanted to make some money originally.
It would.
And have an Airbnb. And then you guys, you said no, she couldn't do it.
Sure. So the restrictions on resort dwellings are what's already in the code still apply. So they would have to be able to do it today in order to be able to do it with one of these accessory dwelling units. The likelihood of that happening is extremely low because of the classifications that this was included in. Specifically, we did not put ADUs in multifamily classifications. So the overlap there between where somebody could do a resort dwelling and also have an accessory dwelling unit under this code is very low. I would also say that that's something that the board probably could look at the time where somebody makes an application for a CUP, for an accessory dwelling unit.
Okay, but what I'm trying to discover here is based on 2 hearings that we had, we permitted her, and the county commission did also, in having that accessory unit if it did not have a kitchen. Okay? So what she said at the end was she'll let them live in her house and she'll go live in the accessory dwelling unit without a kitchen. So, just to help her out, if you're changing this, she may apply for that. I think she was an SE designation.
And she very well may be able to. I mean, she must have been coming in under the guest house, which is, I believe 1932. So this would be an additional potential accessory structure. And if she found that advantageous, she could make an application for a CUP if she met all the requirements in here. That would
Understood.
include things like future land use.
Okay, I apologize that I didn't pull that from my files to see where she was and everything. But Jeff, if you could look into that and maybe give her a call.
I can have my staff do that, yes.
I appreciate it. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman? I had
Yes, sir.
a question. What about setbacks from lot boundaries? Does the same same setback rules apply for this new dwelling unit?
Yes, sir. All the setbacks that exist for current accessory structures would apply to this as well.
And is there any distance between the living units and the ADU to accessory buildings? Is there any restriction there?
There is not in this proposal, there is no requirement for a certain distance between the primary structure and the accessory structure, if I understand that's your question.
That's part of the question. The other part was, what about the ADU to accessory buildings?
No.
The current code between accessory structures is 5 feet, which is very minimal.
Okay. All right, I think that's all I got.
Any other questions from board to staff? You're doing good, Ron. Let's go. I need a motion. You and Robert's been killing it today over there.
Yeah, hey, motion men.
All right, yeah, I'll make a motion that we recommend approval.
Okay, a motion by Ron on item H9, a second by Robert. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That passed unanimously. And board, hey, good job today.
We didn't bore you?
Really good job. You focus on school stuff now.
Never.
Okay, meeting adjourned.
The opinions expressed by any member of the public during any period of public comment do not necessarily reflect the views or opinions of the Board of County Commissioners of Brevard County, Florida, Space Coast Government Television, or the program sponsor, and are solely those of the presenter. The Board of County Commissioners of Brevard County, Florida, Space Coast Government Television, and the program sponsor hereby expressly disclaim any and all responsibility or liability for any defamatory or slanderous statements expressed by any member of the public during any such period.